Hello, dear friend. Wednesday, July the 12th, 2023. Angie Manzour, thank you so much for watching my videos. Hati Shawi, Sister Sharon, Sister Shawi, God bless you. Thank you for watching these videos. And for Beth, I see you taking care of your mom. Bless you. I pray that you're blessed always. Thank you, Beth. And Larice, always checking my video first. Thank you so much. I wanted to just give a shout out and say hello to you and many others that I may forget. That I hope you're able to see these videos and that they would be an encouragement and a blessing to you. I know it's unlikely you're able to watch the whole thing, but that's okay, because as long as I get a chance to say hello, that makes me very happy. And I hope you're doing well. So today, as you could guess, I'm continuing on in this fantastic book called Disturbing the Universe by Freeman Dyson, and I'm going to be covering chapters 15, 16, and 17. Chapter 15 is called The Island of Dr. Moreau. Pardon me, just a little bit of Java to get me going. This was a famous book by H.G. Wells. He was known for writing The Time Machine and The Island of Dr. Moreau. The Island of Dr. Moreau is a kind of like a horror story of some crazy doctor that goes up on an island and makes creatures by he carves up animals using plastic surgery and creates creatures out of animals that are half human, half man, and it's his commentary on the future of the species kind of thing. It was after all Darwin came out. That was probably written. Published in 1896. So there you go, right around the time of Darwin, right when everyone was losing their mind, and so he wrote this book about the evolution of creatures by the intervention of human activity is what the story is about, essentially. And so what this chapter is about, we take a radical right turn or left turn, however you want to say it, a radical turn from the previous chapters about nuclear weapons, Vietnam, and all the stuff about working on atomic energy. And now we're talking about genetic engineering, and in particular, recombinant DNA. This is where the research begins on DNA. And again, we have the author touching base on these. He's talking about books by J.B.S. Haldane. He quotes him often, who published works in 1924, in particular, Daedalus, or Science in the Future. And he quotes from him quite extensively. And he wants to comment on genetic engineering. So he says, two things we have learned from Wells and Haldane. Man cannot play God and still stay sane. The progress of biology is inescapable, placing in man's hands the power to play God. The progress of biology, he says, is inescapable. But these two facts, it does not follow that there is no hope for us. We can still choose to be masters of our fate. To deny any man the power to play God, it is not necessary to forbid him to experiment and explore. It is necessary only to make strict laws, placing the applications of his knowledge under public control. So he gives his opinion on the development of genetic engineering because he's very interested in ethics and so on. And he had people that were part of the same group that he was part of. This is how it kind of connects or dovetails in together. He was working with a guy by the name of Matthew Meselson, and he was at the same place. He was at the Arms Control and Disarmament Agency, the ACDA, that I mentioned in a previous video. He was working at this Arms Control and Disarmament Agency in the summer of 1963. This is to let you know the time frame here. And this Matthew Meselson guy, he was a professor of biology at Harvard. And while Freeman Dyson was working on the nuclear weaponry or nuclear applications, this professor of biology was working on biological weapons. And so here you see how he was introduced to the idea of genetic engineering, engineering biological weapons and viruses and so on and so forth. And then, of course, experimenting with the DNA itself and how those instructions can be manipulated, right? He says the recombinant DNA technique places a piece of DNA from any gene which we desire to study into a convenient bacterium so that the multiplication of the bacterium produces a cloning of the gene, right? This is essentially what was developed at that time. And he goes on to, I'm not going to go into detail because it's it's pretty heavy, right? But that's chapter 15, and he talks about that. And then chapter 16 is a follow-up. Chapter 16 is called Areopagitica. I don't know if you can pronounce that word. Can you see that? It's too, the lighting is not good. Areopagitica. This was a famous speech that was given by a fellow, what's his name? John Milton. So John Milton wrote this speech way back, I think that's in the 1600s or something. And he wrote this speech to support the freedom of the press, the freedom of producing works. They wanted to ban the publishing of books. Once you had the printing press, everybody could just publish whatever they want, essentially, right? And they were trying to fight against that. And so Milton produced this essay, and he named it Areopagitica. I'm guessing it's named after, I looked it up to see what some of the thoughts were on it. And Areopagus was the council in Athens that St. Paul preached, when they were saying, oh, you're preaching false gods. St. Paul got up and the Apostle Paul and said, no, and he gave his speech there about what they were concerned about. So he kind of named it after him because he was saying, look, we can't try and stifle books even before they've done any damage. We can't stifle publications of things even before they hit the public. And he gave his reasons and so on of why. And so the reason this chapter is called, to make a long story short, sorry, I'm going all over the place here. To make a long story short, he's writing chapter 16 to explain how he supported the idea of researching recombinant DNA. And the people, the public, were worried about the applications, test tube babies and manipulating the formation of life and so on. And so he says, the reason he wrote that chapter is to argue to support research under tight controls. And so, again, you got to read the chapter to get the gist of it. But each chapter in this book could be a book in itself, and it would take me forever to try and explain the whole thing. So I'm just going to cut it short. But that's chapter 15, 16, very remarkable. Then we get into section 3 called Points Beyond. And he quotes from T.S. Eliot and in Points Beyond. And so he says here, indeed, there will be time to wonder, do I dare and do I dare? Time to turn back and descend the stair. With a bald spot in the middle of my hair, do I dare disturb the universe? That's by T.S. Eliot, written in 1917. And that's where we get the title of the book, Disturbing the Universe, right? It is a quote from T.S. Eliot, who is one of his favorite poets. They had poets like T.S. Eliot in the previous generation. Today, we didn't have poets. We had Roger Waters and David Gilmour, writing song lyrics. So the song lyricist of our generation or my generation would have been people like Bob Dylan. And we didn't have like T.S. Eliot or even further back like Chaucer. Like who would know what Chaucer is, or who would read such a thing, or Robert Blake, those were absent from our education growing up. We had Jim Morrison and Ray Manzarek, we had the song lyrics that were our poets. And so through history, we see this dumbing down of the population from this generation to my generation. There's been a degradation. It's unfortunate, but be that as it may. So just to finish up this video, chapter 17, it's called Distant Mirror. And he uses that phrase. He takes that from a book that was written by this lady, and she's talking about a historical period in time in the 1400s that all these things happened. It was a very difficult time, but he turns that around and says, my distant mirror is the future. Well, chapter 17 is very remarkable because it is about him being invited by Stanley Kubrick to be in his movie 2001: A Space Odyssey. Now, what are the odds? I mean, this is starting to sound like Forrest Gump. Forrest Gump was written in the 1980s. This was written in the 1970s, again, published in 77. He has a section in it from page 140. I didn't mention it in an early video, but in this section, he took a half a day off from work to go and march on Constitution Avenue, which was just a few blocks away from the State Department, where he was working for the ACDA, as I mentioned earlier. And he marches with 250,000 people, and he ends up standing very close to Martin Luther King as he spoke his I Have a Dream speech. Now, what are the odds? I mean, you remember Forrest Gump, how he went through all these iconic life experiences. It was a fiction. This is the guy, he's writing his real biography here. It's based on his life experiences. And I mean, he wrote this. He wouldn't have been able to without having it verified by many, many people, right? And he was writing this at the behest of the students that he had that were asking him questions, as it's mentioned in the preface. And so now, move forward to page, where are we here? On page 187, and he's been invited in the spring of 1966 by Stanley Kubrick to go, because he's a well-known scientist. Kubrick wanted a scientist being interviewed at the beginning of the movie. He does an interview for him. He tells all the details about how that happened. It ended up on the cutting room floor, so it actually didn't get included in the movie. But again, he's telling his life story. This would have been easily verifiable. I'm not, I'm taking the guy's word that this really did happen. He's not writing a fiction here, because he tells all the details about his mannerisms and this and that and what they talked about. And it's just fascinating to go over, because that is an iconic movie. And especially since Kubrick did Dr. Strangelove, which ties in with the author's work with Oppenheimer. So you get this amazing mosaic, a kaleidoscope of life activity that's coming at you in this book. I've never read a book like it. It's really, really marvelous. And I'm just going to finish this video with a quote from this chapter called The Distant Mirror. And again, he uses the name of that title because he says for him the future is his distant mirror, and he's constantly looking to the future. And he really was a futurist, kind of like Buckminster Fuller in many ways, or others contemporaries like that. So let's finish up this video. Sorry I'm getting too long here, but let's finish this video with a quote from page 193, where he says the future is my distant mirror, and it is here. He says, Einstein's vision reinforces the lesson I have learned from Barbara Tuchman's distant mirror and from my own. Barbara Tuchman was the one that wrote about the 1400. Leave that out. Einstein's vision reinforces the lessons I have learned from Barbara Tuchman's distant mirror and from my own. The past and the future are not remote from us. The people of 600 years back and of 600 years ahead are people like ourselves. They are our neighbors in this universe. Technology has caused and will cause profound changes in style of life and thought, separating us from our neighbors. All the more precious then are the bonds of kinship that tie us together. So if you're watching this video from 600 years into the future, we're neighbors. We share a kinship together. That's funny to think about, 600 years. He quotes Einstein on page 193. He went to a funeral of a close friend of his. It was only a couple of weeks before he passed away himself. And Einstein wrote a letter to the widow of this famous scientist, Besso. His name was Besso, and he passed away just a few weeks before Einstein did. But he wrote a letter to his spouse because he was sending his condolences. He says, now he has departed. He's talking about his friend, his lifelong friend that he loved dearly. He said, now he has departed from this strange world a little ahead of me. That means nothing. People like us, who believe in physics, know that the distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion. And then he goes down and gives that quote that I just mentioned to you there. I'll just repeat one last part of it. The past and the future are not remote from us. The people of 600 years back and of 600 years ahead are people like ourselves. They are our neighbors in this universe. Technology has caused and will cause profound changes in style of life and thought, separating us from our neighbors. All the more precious, then, are the bonds of kinship that tie us all together. That's how he finishes chapter chapter 17. Just absolutely intense, mind-blowing, powerful. Um, you know, what a life that this guy lived. I mean, just beyond one's imagination. And there you go. I had never heard of him before. So there you go. That's the next video. I believe this is video number 7. And so how many chapters do we have left here? Let me see if it's in the index, if there is an index here. We're in section 3. Okay, so we're in the last section. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have thought experiments coming up, then extraterrestrials. That should be fun. Clades and clones. Don't know what that means. The greening of the galaxy. Back to Earth. The argument from design, which I covered right away because I cheated and went ahead. And then dreams of Earth and sky. And that's it. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 chapters to go. So I'll try and get that done in 2 or 3 videos. This is video number 7. And praise God. I hope you're having a wonderful day. I hope you're happy. I hope these things don't bother you, that you don't get yourself all wrapped up in too much detail like I do sometimes and drive myself bonkers. But wherever you are, remember, I love you very much. I pray that you're blessed. I hope you have a wonderful day. I hope you're happy and peaceful, able to spend time with people you love. And have yourself a great day. Get some fresh air. Enjoy the sunshine. Touch some grass, as people like to say these days. And I'll talk to you again soon, okay? Bye-bye now. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.